The screaming started before we realized Darren was gone. At first it sounded far away, like somebody yelling across a lake, but the woods kept throwing the sound around so weirdly, none of us could tell where it came from. 1 second it sounded behind us, then off to the left, then close enough that I actually turned, expecting Darren to come crashing through the trees joking around. But he didn't. Only 3 of us stood there now. Me, Kelly, and Marcus. Darren had been walking directly ahead of me, maybe 30 seconds earlier. That's what bothered me most. There was no moment where he wandered off. No sound of branches snapping. No joke. He was just gone. Kelly thought he was messing with us at first. She kept calling his name, irritated more than worried. We'd been hiking near Black Pine National Forest for most of the afternoon, trying to reach an old fire lookout locals posted about online. Nothing serious, just a weekend trip. But the trail markers stopped about an hour before sunset, and after that Darren insisted he knew a shortcut back toward the parking area because he'd hunted nearby years earlier with his uncle. Marcus didn't believe him. They argued about it for probably 20 minutes while we walked. That tension mattered later because it meant everyone was distracted when Darren disappeared. I remember another detail too. About 10 minutes before the screaming started, we passed an old refrigerator sitting upright in the middle of the woods. Door missing, rusted almost completely brown. No reason for it to be there. Kelly laughed and took a picture beside it because she thought it looked creepy. When she checked her phone later, the image was corrupted, just gray static. At the time, none of us cared. We should have. Once we realized Darren wasn't answering, Marcus started shouting louder. The woods stayed completely silent between echoes. No birds, no wind. Then the screaming came again. Definitely Darren this time. Short burst, cut off suddenly. We ran toward it without thinking. Maybe 50 yards downhill, we found his backpack lying beside a narrow stream. One strap torn clean off, phone missing, flashlight still inside. The strange thing was the ground around the stream looked untouched. No signs of a fall, no drag marks, nothing. Just wet rocks and Darren's backpack sitting upright, like somebody placed it carefully there. Kelly noticed footprints first, bare footprints in the mud leading across the stream, small ones. Child-sized maybe. Marcus immediately said we needed to head back before dark. Smartest thing anybody said all night, honestly. But when we tried retracing our route, we couldn't find the trail anymore. Not just lost, exactly. Worse than that. Landmarks kept changing. We passed the same split tree 3 separate times within maybe 20 minutes, even though we were walking in a straight line, using the compass on Marcus's watch. My phone GPS showed us moving constantly, but the map itself stayed frozen. No signal bars either. Around sunset we found a gravel road we swore hadn't been there earlier. Narrow, overgrown, deep tire tracks in the mud like heavy trucks used it recently. Kelly wanted to follow it because roads meant people. Marcus didn't. He pointed out there were no utility poles, no signs, nothing. Just road disappearing into thicker woods. Then we heard an engine somewhere ahead. Faint. Idling maybe. We all stopped talking immediately. The engine cut off after maybe 10 seconds. Silence again. I called out hello once. No response. That's when Kelly noticed the shoe hanging from the trees. Single hiking boot dangling from fishing line maybe 15 feet overhead. Darren's boot. Mud still fresh in a sole. Marcus cursed quietly and started walking faster down the road. We followed because, honestly, nobody wanted to stay there. Twilight hit fast under the trees. The road eventually led to a clearing with an old ranger station sitting crooked near the edge of a hill. Windows boarded except for one upstairs glowing faint yellow. Not electric light exactly, more like lantern light moving around. Relief hit me immediately because faintly there was somebody. Marcus started toward the building before Kelly grabbed his arm hard enough to stop him. "Look at the cars," she whispered. 3 vehicles sat near. The station covered in dirt and pine needles. All old. Flat tires. One of them had a missing persons flyer stuck beneath the windshield wiper, soaked from rain. Same girl's face, repeated across several papers taped near the ranger station door. Missing since 2019. The papers looked fresh, though, not years old. Before we could process that, footsteps moved upstairs inside the station. Slow pacing, then stopped. The yellow light vanished from the window instantly. We backed away without speaking. I remember hearing metal scrape softly from inside the building after that, like somebody dragging furniture across the floor. Marcus whispered, "We should leave immediately." None of us argued. We kept following the gravel road another half hour before darkness fully swallowed everything. Flashlights barely helped, because fog started settling through the trees. Thick, low fog that moved strangely fast. At one point, Kelly grabbed my arm and pointed toward the woods beside us. There was somebody standing between the trees, maybe 30 feet away. Tall, motionless. Couldn't see details, just outline. Marcus flashed his light directly at it, and whoever it was stepped backward out of view instantly. No sound. We started moving faster after that. Then came the radio static. Loud, sudden burst from somewhere ahead on the road. We froze again. Another crackle followed by a man's voice, speaking too distorted to understand. Sounded like an old police radio. We followed it carefully around a bend and found an ATV parked crooked beside a ditch with its lights still on. Empty. Radio mounted near the handlebars, buzzing with static. Kelly called out repeatedly, but nobody answered. Then the radio suddenly cleared enough for one sentence. "Do not follow the lights." That was all. Static returned immediately afterward. Marcus shut the radio off completely. That's when we saw the lights deeper in the woods. 3 white lights moving slowly between the trees parallel to us. Too steady for flashlights. Almost floating. Kelly started crying quietly, because she thought maybe they were search teams and we'd somehow missed hearing them. But the lights never moved closer. They just matched our pace from inside the forest. Eventually Marcus yelled, asking who was there. All 3 lights stopped instantly. Then one switched off. Then another. The last one stayed still a few seconds longer before vanishing too. I wish we'd stayed on the road after that. Instead, we panicked when we heard footsteps behind us and cut into the woods, trying to lose whoever might have been following. Worst mistake of my life. Within minutes, we were completely disoriented again. The forest got denser the farther we pushed through it. More dead trees, less underbrush. Strange smell too, like bleach almost. Then Kelly found the fence. Tall chain-link fence, running endlessly through the woods, with faded warning signs zip-tied every 20 feet. Most too damaged to read, except one near a bent section. Restricted Wildlife Research Area. No agency name underneath, no logo, nothing. The fence had been cut open recently though, large enough opening for people to squeeze through. Marcus wanted nothing to do with it. But then we heard Darren screaming again, close this time, definitely ahead of us, beyond the fence. Kelly crawled through immediately before we could stop her. We followed because leaving her alone out there felt impossible. Other side of the fence looked wrong somehow. Too quiet. Ground covered in patches of white powder. Several floodlights mounted on poles, but none turned on. Then we found the cabin. Concrete structure half buried into the hillside with one heavy metal door standing partially open. Light flickered inside, generator humming somewhere nearby. Darren's voice came again, weaker now. Sounded underground. Marcus grabbed the broken tree branch like a weapon before approaching. I still remember how human everything suddenly felt again, seeing electrical wires and tire tracks near the cabin. Real people had been there recently. Fresh cigarette butts outside. Empty water bottles. We stepped inside, calling Darren's name. The place looked abandoned at first glance. Dusty desks, filing cabinets overturned. But there were newer things too. Medical gloves, plastic tarps, portable radio equipment still running quietly in another room. Kelly found a hallway leading downstairs. That's where the smell hit us. Strongest. Chemical smell. Bleach. And something rotten underneath it. Darren started yelling again the second we reached the stairs. "Don't come down here." We rushed anyway. Basement corridor below was concrete and freezing cold. Several locked doors lined the walls. One hanging open revealed cages inside. Human-sized cages. I swear to God that's true. Marcus kept shouting Darren's name until suddenly Darren answered directly behind us. We all spun around at once. He stood at the top of the stairs, shaking violently, covered in mud, one shoe missing. Kelly ran toward him immediately, hugging him so hard, she almost knocked him over. Darren looked completely terrified, could barely talk properly. He kept saying there were people in the woods watching us. Said he woke up inside one of the cages downstairs after somebody grabbed him near the stream. But before we could ask anything else, a loud metallic bang echoed from somewhere outside the cabin. Vehicle door, maybe. Darren's face changed instantly hearing it. "We need to go now," he whispered. "Right now." We ran back upstairs together. Through one of the front windows, I saw headlights approaching slowly through the trees toward the cabin. Large truck, maybe. Darren started panicking worse when he saw them. He grabbed one of the radios off a desk and smashed it against the floor. "They track the sound," he kept saying. "They know when people answer." None of us understood what he meant. We escaped through a side exit into the woods behind the cabin seconds before the truck reached the clearing. I only got one clear look at it. Dark green utility truck with no markings, 2 people inside wearing reflective jackets, no police lights, no logos. We hid downhill behind fallen trees while the truck idled outside the cabin. Flashlights swept through the woods several times but never directly hit us. Then somebody over a loudspeaker calmly said, "You're outside the safe zone now. Return to the road." Safe zone. That phrase still bothers me. Darren refused to move until the truck finally drove away, maybe 20 minutes later. Afterward, he admitted he never actually saw who grabbed him earlier, just smelled chemicals before blacking out near the stream. He woke inside the basement cage alone, said he heard voices upstairs discussing another search team coming tomorrow. Around sunrise, we finally stumbled onto a real highway, nearly 6 miles from where we originally parked. State police picked us up outside a gas station after seeing Kelly barefoot and crying near the shoulder. We told investigators everything: the ranger station, the fence, the cabin, the truck. None of it made sense to them. Search teams later found the gravel road, but no ranger station at the end. Just burned foundations and debris from a structure destroyed years earlier in a wildfire. No fence nearby either. Nothing matching the cabin description. The weirdest part happened 2 weeks later, though. Kelly developed the corrupted photo she took beside the refrigerator, using an old print shop machine because digital copies wouldn't open anymore. In the background behind us, barely visible between the trees, stood 3 people wearing reflective jackets watching us from a distance. And hanging above them from the branches were 4 hiking boots instead of 1. The knocking came from underneath the ground. 3 slow knocks directly below my sleeping bag, deep enough that I actually pressed my ear against the dirt thinking maybe there was water moving under us, or some kind of pipe. But we were 12 miles inside Grayson National Forest. No campsites, no cabins, nothing. Just trees and dirt, and miles of empty hiking trails. The knocking came again, around 4 seconds later. Same rhythm, 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. My cousin Nate whispered from the other side of the fire, "Tell me you hear that too." None of us moved for a second. It was me, Nate, and his friend Leah. We'd started the hike that morning planning to reach an abandoned lookout tower before sunset, but somewhere after mile marker 8, the trail split unexpectedly, and our downloaded map stopped matching the actual terrain. We lost almost 2 hours backtracking before finally setting camp near a shallow creek as darkness rolled in. The weird part is we never found the creek on the map either. At first the knocking sounded far underground, then closer, like somebody tapping directly beneath the soil with metal. Leah joked maybe it was old mining tunnels. Nate didn't laugh. He kept scanning the woods behind us with his flashlight, even after the knocking stopped. Around maybe 1 a.m., we heard footsteps circling the campsite. Slow, careful footsteps, not animal movement. Too deliberate. Crunch, pause, crunch. Always staying just outside the firelight. Nate shouted hello once. Everything stopped immediately. No movement. No response. Then maybe 10 seconds later, a flashlight blinked twice between the trees uphill from us. White light, gone instantly. Leah thought maybe another lost hiker. I remember saying, no normal person would stand out there silently watching people at 1 in the morning. That's when my phone buzzed with a low battery warning, even though I'd fully charged it before the trip. 0 signal bars. Time said 3:17 a.m. Mate checked his watch. It was only 1:42 seconds. We argued about that for a minute, until Leah noticed something worse. Our fire had almost completely died, but none of us remembered it burning down. It felt like maybe 15 minutes had passed since we made coffee. Somehow over an hour was missing. We packed our stuff immediately after that because honestly none of us wanted to stay there until sunrise anymore. The second we left the campsite, the knocking started again beneath the ground. Louder this time, matching our walking pace. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. Leah stopped dead and whispered, "Something's under us." Mate snapped at her to shut up, because panic was starting to spread fast. We followed the creek hoping it would eventually connect back to the main trail. Instead, it led us deeper into thicker woods where the trees grew so close together, our backpacks kept snagging branches. Then, we found the first shoe. Muddy hiking boot hanging from fishing line about 8 feet off the ground. Fresh mud still on the sole. Women's boot. Not old either. Leah pointed out something I wish she hadn't. The laces were tied carefully into a knot around the branch, almost like somebody wanted it displayed there. 20 feet farther we found another one. Different size. Then another. None matched each other. Mate finally admitted we were lost for real around that point. The woods also felt wrong suddenly. No insects, no wind. Just our footsteps and distant water. Then came the whistle. One short whistle from somewhere behind us. Human whistle. We all spun around at once. Nothing there. But maybe 15 seconds later another whistle answered farther off to our left. Then another deeper in the woods ahead. 3 separate whistles. Communicating. Nate grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt and quietly said, "Do not answer that." We started moving faster after that. The terrain sloped downhill sharply until the trees finally opened into a clearing with an old truck parked near the center. White utility truck. Rust streaked down both doors, driver's side hanging open slightly. Relief hit me instantly, because finally there was another person. But as we got closer, things started feeling off. The truck tires were half sunk into mud like it hadn't moved in weeks, yet the engine was warm. I touched the hood myself, warm enough that somebody had driven it recently. Leah looked inside and found a radio still quietly buzzing with static. No keys, no driver, just muddy footprints leading away from the vehicle toward the woods. Nate wanted to leave immediately. Leah noticed the cooler in the truck bed first. Large white cooler duct taped shut. I remember this horrible feeling settling in my stomach before she even touched it. She peeled one corner of tape back and immediately recoiled. The smell hit us almost instantly. Rotting meat, maybe. Something awful. Nate slammed the cooler shut again before we could see clearly inside. Then the radio crackled suddenly. Loud enough to make all 3 of us jump. A man's voice pushed through the static saying, "Truck 7, report your position." Silence. Then another voice answered somewhere nearby. Not through the radio. Out in the woods behind us. "Found them." We ran immediately, branches whipping our faces, packs bouncing everywhere. I heard someone crashing through the trees behind us for maybe 30 seconds before the sound stopped completely. That almost felt worse, honestly. No yelling, no pursuit. Just silence again. Eventually we slowed near another creek crossing because Leah twisted her ankle jumping over rocks. While helping her sit down, I noticed something strange carved into one of the nearby trees. A date. 1989. Underneath it were 5 names scratched deeply into the bark. 4 headlines crossing them out. 1 remained untouched. Maya. Nate started checking more trees after that. Same thing, over and over. Names, dates, some recent, some decades old. Different handwriting styles. Some names crossed out, others circled. Leah asked what that meant, and nobody answered because none of us wanted to say the obvious thing out loud. Around dawn, fog started rolling through the forest low against the ground, thick enough that visibility dropped to maybe 20 feet. That's when we heard the crying. Woman crying softly, somewhere ahead. Mate immediately said it could be bait. Leah ignored him and started limping toward the sound anyway. We followed, because leaving her alone wasn't an option. The crying led us to a small cabin, hidden between massive pine trees. Tiny place, almost looked homemade. Smoke rising from a metal chimney. One dim yellow light inside. The crying stopped the second we stepped into the clearing. Front door sat slightly open. I remember seeing muddy handprints smeared near the frame. Nate kept saying we shouldn't go near it, but then a woman's voice quietly called, "Please help me." We went inside. The cabin smelled damp and strangely sweet, like old perfume covering mildew. One table, small stove, blankets piled in a corner. No woman. Nobody at all. But there were signs somebody definitely lived there recently. Food wrappers, fresh coffee grounds, a battery lantern still glowing near the sink. Leah noticed the photographs hanging beside the back room entrance. Missing person flyers. Dozens of them. Some old and faded. Others fresh enough the papers still curled at the corners. One showed a teenage boy missing only 3 months earlier from another state. Then, Nate found the camera. Old handheld camcorder sitting on the kitchen table charging from a portable battery pack. Red recording light blinking slowly. Against my better judgment, I played the footage. The first videos showed normal hiking clips, families, campfires, trail views. Then the footage changed. Night vision recordings of people sleeping inside tents, different groups, different campsites, none aware they were being filmed. Leah started crying quietly when we realized some clips were years apart. Whoever owned the camera had been recording hikers for a long time. Then one final video started automatically. Time-stamped from only 4 nights earlier. A woman recording herself while whispering frantically. "If somebody finds this cabin, do not follow the whistles." Behind her, another person moved briefly through the room. Tall figure wearing reflective hunting gear. The woman turned, hearing movement, and the video cut abruptly to static. Right then, footsteps creaked across the cabin roof overhead. Heavy footsteps. All 3 of us froze instantly. Slow pacing directly above us. Then a loud knock hit the ceiling from outside. 3 knocks. Same rhythm from underground earlier. Mate grabbed the camcorder while I killed the lantern. We slipped out the back door quietly into the fog behind the cabin. The footsteps on the roof continued for maybe another minute before stopping. We kept moving downhill blindly through the trees, until we found an old wire fence running through the forest. Sections crushed flat like vehicles passed through recently. On the other side sat several trailers hidden beneath camouflage tarps. At least 4 or 5 of them. No lights, no movement. But there was a smell. Smoke mixed with bleach. Leah whispered, maybe it was some illegal hunting camp. Then we saw the clothesline. Hiking jackets hanging neatly beside backpacks and boots. Dozens of them, different sizes, different colors. Nate spotted a ranger badge pinned to one jacket sleeve. That's when engines started somewhere behind the trailers. Multiple engines, truck doors slamming. We dropped flat behind bushes immediately. Voices carried through the fog, but too muffled to understand clearly. Then flashlights started sweeping across the trees. One beam passed maybe 10 feet from us. I could hear my heartbeat honestly. Leah was shaking so badly beside me, I thought they'd hear her breathing. The voices got closer. One man laughed quietly and said, "Told you they'd head toward the old cabins." Cabins. Plural. Meaning this setup had probably existed a long time. We crawled along the fence line for what felt like forever until the voices finally faded behind us. Sometime after sunrise, we found a gravel service road and followed it for nearly 3 hours before reaching a ranger station near the highway. Rangers acted strangely uncomfortable hearing our story, especially after we mentioned the hidden trailers. One older ranger asked very specifically whether we saw any white utility trucks. When we said yes, His entire expression changed. Search teams went out later that afternoon, supposedly checking the area where we'd been lost. They found the abandoned utility truck near the clearing, exactly where we described it. But according to them, there were no trailers, no cabin, no campsite, nothing, just empty woods. The weirdest part happened back home 3 weeks later. Nate uploaded footage from his GoPro trying to piece together our route. Most files were corrupted, timestamps wrong, hours missing. But one clip survived, just 12 seconds long. It showed us walking through the fog near dawn without realizing somebody was already behind us. Tall person in reflective hunting gear, following maybe 30 feet back between the trees. Walking slowly, matching our pace perfectly, and right before the clip cuts out, you hear 3 slow knocks coming from somewhere. No one's hope is coming from somewhere else's. But right now, one clip is coming from somewhere else. This time comes from somewhere else. It will be our head.